Welcome to Section 3, Examples of Going Further. In this section, we will cover some of the Azure services that you can leverage while building serverless workloads on Microsoft Azure. While Microsoft Azure offers a whole suite of services that you can use to build your awesome application, it would take months for me to go through each of them. So, in this section, I'll focus on the following services. Azure API Management. Azure API Management offers an API proxy that you can use to front-end your APIs and business logic and offers several benefits like securing your APIs, improving their performance, and deep insights on how your APIs are being used. Azure Application Insights. I love application insights. Well, let me rephrase that. I absolutely love application insights. If you ever wanted to get telemetry about your application, including the capability to track performance, activities, and events, Application Insights is just for you. Azure Search Service. One of the primary tools for customer interaction is the search capability in your application or your website. You might have searched for a course on serverless and probably landed on this course. Azure Search Service allows you to add sophisticated cloud search capabilities to your applications using the same natural language stack that powers Bing and Microsoft Office. Azure Billing. Now, this one is probably the most interesting. Azure Billing is certainly not a service that you will be incorporating in your application, but you may want to track the usage and the costs associated with Azure so that you can feed this data to your management. I'll show you some of the options that you have to get this data using the RESTful APIs offered by Microsoft Azure Billing. And finally, we'll do a quick summary of what we've learned in this course and see how you can take the skills learned in this course a step further. Welcome to this video where we will talk about Azure API Management. Application programming interfaces are the new bacon. Every company wants its services to be consumed by its customers. The customers may be external or its own internal staff. Usually, building the APIs and the business logic is the easy part. However, exposing these APIs in a secure way, making them highly performant, and getting insights about their usage is the tricky part. That's where Azure API Management comes in. API Management, abbreviated as APIM, helps organizations publish APIs to external, partner, and internal developers to basically unlock the potential of their data and services. To use API Management, administrators create APIs. Each API consists of one or more operations, and each API can be added to one or more products. To use an API, developers subscribe to a product that contains that API, and then they can call the API's operation, which can be governed via the usage policies that may be in effect. Let's see a quick demonstration of creating a new API management instance using Azure PowerShell. In the previous section, that is in section 2, I showed you how to install and authenticate to Azure using the Azure RM PowerShell module. So I will skip that part and dive straight into creating the API management instance. You can also use the Azure Cloud Shell to perform the task shown in this video. Let's start by creating a resource group, which is a logical container into which Azure resources are deployed and managed. Next, I'll create a new API management service using the new -Azure RM API management commandlet. I will specify the resource group we created earlier. The location, in our case, it's going to be Australia Southeast. A name, which is going to be PackPub APIM Demo. An organization name, which is going to be PackPub-01. An admin email. And finally, the SKU, which will be developer in our case. Now, bear in mind that this is a long-running operation and it could take anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes to complete. In the interest of time, I've already created an API instance, and we will continue this lesson using the API instances that I've created beforehand. If you're following along, make sure your API instance is ready before you proceed. Now that our API instance is ready, let's import an OpenAPI specification backend API residing at the conferenceapi.azurewebsites.net URL. This backend API is provided by Microsoft. It serves as a great tool to learn about APIM without the need to worry about building APIs. Obviously, in your case, you'll have your APIs already built and they can run anywhere, on Azure, on-premises, or even on Amazon Web Services. Once the backend API is imported into APIM, the APIM API basically becomes a facade for the backend API. Let's go to API Management Services by clicking on All Services, searching for API, and selecting the API Management Services. We will select our API Management instance. Next, select APIs under API Management. Let's select Open API Specification from the list. I will paste in the URL for the conference API specs, which will basically autofill the display name, the name, and the description field. For the URL scheme, I will select HTTPS, and for the URL suffix, let's enter conference. At the time of recording this course, the tagging feature of APIM is in preview. I will tag this as conference for the lack of anything interesting. And finally, for the product, we will choose unlimited. Products are essentially associations of one or more APIs. You can include a number of APIs into a product and offer them to developers through the developer portal. You publish the API by associating the API with the product. To get access to the API, developers must first subscribe to a product. When they subscribe, they get a subscription that is good for any API in that product. If you created the API instance, you are already the administrator, so you are already subscribed to every product. By default, each API management instance comes with two sample products, Starter and Unlimited. Well, that's all to it. Let's click on Create to deploy our API packaged as a product. Now, it's time to test our APIM API using the Azure portal. One awesome feature of the APIM product is that the operations can be called directly from the Azure portal, which basically provides a very easy way to view and test the operations of the API. Let's select our API and press the Test tab. Let's click on Get Speakers. As you can see, the page displays fields for query parameters, but in this case, we don't have any. The page also displays fields for the headers. One of the headers is the OCP APIM subscription key, which is the subscription key of the product that is associated with this API. This key is automatically filled in for us. Let's now press Send. And there we go. We get some data from the backend server and the response code of 200 OK. Let's now call an operation from the developer portal to test our API. Select Demo Conference API. Click Get Speakers. Again, the page displays fields for query parameters, but in this case we don't have any. The page also displays fields for the headers. As noted earlier, one of the headers is the OCP APIM subscription key, and that is filled automatically for us. Let's go ahead and press Try it, and then Send. And as you can see, the operation is invoked and the developer portal shows us some results.